There's no question that this complaint should be and needs to be written down. It's unheard of that a disabled person should be forcibly given illegal homework and threatened if they don't comply with it. It's even not shocking, apparently, to the administrative coalition responsible that I was deliberately given Parkinson's to make typing that much harder and to watch my mental health framework self destruct as punishment, what they consider a fourth dimensional punishment. I know a good deal about them, as my tapes make clear, but each and every time they act as though they've never heard a word. It's gone on for 40, 50 years. If this were being done to Congress, there's no question they would respond with force to prevent further um, campus games with death outcome. But the essence of this criminal insanity comes from a justification on the part of administration that seems to believe they have found a perpetual motion machine, a perp motion machine is what it should be abbreviated as. And that this perpetual interrogation is some potentially lucrative mad invention. The Kennedy assassination, they talk of a magic bullet. I've often said there were two magic bullets. One that caused tons of wounds and emerged pristine on the wrong stretcher. And the other that drove the president's head backwards while being fired from the rear. Likewise, there are two magic bullets for the perpetrators, or I should say, two magic slip knots. The first being the idea that it is unassailable that the cruel prank of setting up a battered, traumatized child to look as though they were responsible for the murder of the playwright of the crime, who pulled a Houdini, is uncontestable. This crime of insane cruelty rests on something that people are led to believe, and it creates a mob scene because the Beatles were gifted at generating hysteria. I call them applause rock, applause machine rock. The second slipknot pertains to the timeline. They say that there's an interlocutor compulsion because there's a mandate to answer the perp motion interrogation, which is false. It traces the other slipknot pertains to their timeline. When Amanda Harcourt gave the signal, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts for the perps and their alliance, to proclaim they were speaking for the victims, which is how it works. And the script even says, gay ill burst in, meaning the gays kicked your door down. Advocacy for the victims, they call it. This soundless creature that fuses to the psyche of the victim, the prey, is John's revenge for Yoko Ono. It was visited on the Kennedys. But the timeline is a mistake. It's saying that it was inevitable because once it happened, it happened. certainly saving John Lennon or interfering with the Houdini would not have stopped them from doing the rest of their prank, and openly contested their war crime, and they delayed and delayed and delayed to do it again. So the timeline claims that if at the moment of discovery, if they had announced warning, it would not have saved lives, and that is absolutely false. They chased victims, they spooked the victims. They said sin is contagious. The victims said this isn't sin, and so we will repudiate your claim that the contagion is sin by engaging in remorseless continued um, contact without any kind of protection apparatus, without warning. And they kept me likewise in the dark and fueled my reaction formations identically. And when I didn't catch the virus, they stood over me, inflicting new terrors, pushing towards Parkinson's and death outcome because they are criminally insane. That's the answer to the quandary of these slip knobs. If you can accord people this criminally insane, the catastrophic idea that everything they say is intelligible and true and actionable, you end up with war games on campus with death outcome being winked at by administrators without any moral intervention whatsoever. Slavery of a death poet, torture, rape, military ultimatums, ransacking of Congress with the um, approval of many members of Congress. So you end up with this situation because of the uh, absurd idea that warning would not have helped. The absurd idea that the perpetrators were the victims. So it's a great deal involved in the perp machine, but at root of it, they've made a bounty and so on. Campuses with death outcome for innocent people is not in the charter. If there are administrative bylaws, however, at Pitt, CMU, Claremont, CCAC, or Tacoma Community College against organized class war games with death outcome, they don't work. As Martha Gellhorn said at Dachau, it never did anyone ever any good to cry out from this place. The perpetrators are obviously fascinated by their impunity and regurge deadly ultimatum as nauseum as a form of Axis pressure lobby. And they imagine themselves an invented idea of Trappists. They've trapped a catch 22 that you can't escape. It's a moxie doxa. The idea that the more unjust the offense, the less you can escape the prescribed um, rebellion. And the root of it is, however, that the NAM veterans despised child exemption. Child exemption. They didn't think children should be exempt from draft into brutal terror, and that, so they picked on me for being a child who was soft spoken opposed to the war. And they created a New Testament pressure lobby. There's a lot of Christian bullying in American society. Well, they hotwired it into a self destruct mechanism to get revenge for the Axis were supposed to act out the book of Revelation. The obvious need for prevention of such things were answered. This note would not exist, but that it does requires a brief mention of the fact that I can't type it because of what they've done to cause rigidity. It would take too much time. And, there are many corollary issues attending what they've done, but they want answers right away because they are selling accelerated martyrdom and the Second Amendment before the First Amendment. Everybody knows how that works. The idea that you can't escape sin is contagion. Either you get contagious or you recognize the sin. Is a form of biotechnology in punk, cyberpunk that comes out in Moxieland. The Moxie docs of the so-called Trappists. There are other issues in Moxieland that come out in this arcane super dementia. I don't call it academics, it's a super dementia. Critical race theory just pertains to the fact that racism exists and it's become part of our system. But this form of critical race theory is an elite military that serve only themselves and attack symbols. Um, and when it comes to honest victims, and there are some, I'm sure, there's a problem with the mental health issue that comes with veterans. The more unjust the war, the less you dare dissent for fear of causing remorse or worse. There's a lot of veteran suicides. Who can handle the insanity of coping with the idea of a double guilt situation for going along with what Roger Waters has dreamed up, or seeing someone who's trying to navigate the situation victimized. I mean, the claim that empathy wasn't there is absurd. I went right to work when I saw what, as in 1984. Oh, it was cast as oh he's afraid he'll get it, but I was indignant was what happened, and they, of course, because they wanted to stall for their follow-up attacks, they deny that. They say the more unjust the situation, the less power you have to escape the prescribed resistance. This is a form of moxodoxy. It means that the stupid administrators of our schools are tolerating war games with death outcomes.